Have you ever looked at someone trapped in a toxic relationship and thought, why don't they just leave? From the outside, it seems simple. The insults, the manipulation, the broken promises, the endless cycle of pain. Leave, walk away, start over. But then something strange happens. Sometimes the people who suffer the most become the ones who stay the longest. And if you've ever been in a toxic relationship, you know the terrifying truth. The chains were never around your hands, they were around your mind. Because toxic relationships do not usually work like prisons with locked doors. They work like addictions, slowly, quietly, psychologically. And by the time you realize what happened, you are no longer fighting against another person, you are fighting against yourself. Imagine putting a frog into boiling water. It jumps out immediately, but if the water temperature rises slowly, the frog stays, warmer, 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 until danger begins to feel normal. Human psychology works in a similar way. Nobody enters a relationship and says, I want someone to destroy my self-worth. It starts differently, very differently. At the beginning, toxic people often appear almost perfect. They make you feel special, chosen, seen. You feel like someone finally understands you. You receive attention you have never received before. Messages every hour, compliments every day, intense affection. Psychologists sometimes call this pattern love bombing. Not always intentionally, but the effect can be powerful. The emotional intensity feels like love, but intensity and love are not always the same thing. Intensity creates dependency. Love creates safety, and many people confuse the two.
Then something changes. Very slowly. The attention decreases. The warmth becomes cold. The kindness becomes criticism. The person who once made you feel important begins making you feel small. But your mind does something dangerous. Instead of asking, why did they change? You begin asking, what did I do wrong? This is where the trap begins. Because humans naturally search for explanations, and when pain appears suddenly, we often blame ourselves. Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I ask for too much. Maybe I need to try harder. Maybe if I become better, things will return to how they were. And suddenly, you are no longer in a relationship, you are in a mission to bring back the person you met in the beginning. But here's the dark truth. Sometimes that version never really existed. There is a psychological principle called intermittent reinforcement, and it is one of the most powerful forms of conditioning ever discovered. Imagine a machine. You press a button. Sometimes you get a reward. Sometimes you don't. Not knowing when the reward comes makes people continue pressing again and again and again. Casinos understand this. Social media understands this. And toxic relationships can accidentally or deliberately create the same pattern. One day they ignore you, the next day they suddenly become loving. One day they hurt you, the next day they apologize. One day they make you cry, the next day they say, you're the only person I need. And your brain becomes confused, because unpredictable rewards create stronger attachment than predictable ones. You stop chasing love, you start chasing relief. Eventually, something even darker begins to happen. Your world starts becoming smaller. You stop talking to friends. You stop sharing your feelings. You stop doing the things you once loved. Without noticing it, your identity slowly disappears. And this is terrifying because humans do not simply leave relationships, they leave realities. Imagine spending months or years building your entire emotional world around one person. Your routines involve them. Your future involves them. Your dreams involve them. Even your pain involves them. Now imagine removing that person. Suddenly there is silence. Suddenly there is emptiness. And the brain often fears emptiness more than suffering, because suffering is familiar. Familiar pain can feel safer than unfamiliar freedom. Read that again. Familiar pain can feel safer than unfamiliar freedom. Many people who grow up in unstable environments unknowingly learn a dangerous lesson. Love must be earned. Love must be chased. Love must be survived. So later in life, calm relationships may feel strange, even boring, because chaos feels familiar. The nervous system becomes used to emotional storms, and peace starts feeling unnatural. This doesn't mean someone wants pain. It means the mind often mistakes familiarity for safety. Then guilt enters. Maybe they had a difficult childhood. Maybe they are struggling. Maybe they really love me. Maybe if I leave, I am abandoning them. So you continue sacrificing yourself, piece by piece, until one day you wake up and barely recognize who you have become. You stare into the mirror and wonder, when did I become this person? When did I become someone who accepts things I once promised I would never tolerate? Because toxic relationships rarely destroy people overnight. They erase people gradually, like waves removing pieces of a cliff. Small pieces, invisible pieces, until one day the entire structure collapses. But here's something important. People often think healing begins when you leave. Not always. Sometimes, healing begins when you finally see the truth. Because before escaping physically, you must escape psychologically. You must stop believing, I need them to feel complete. You must stop believing, I can save them if I suffer enough. You must stop believing the pain proves the love is real. Because love should not feel like drowning hoping another person becomes your oxygen. Love should not demand the death of your identity. Love should not require you to disappear. The darkest part of toxic relationships is not that someone hurts you. The darkest part is that eventually you begin helping them hurt you. You silence your feelings, you ignore your instincts, you betray yourself. Not because you were weak, but because human psychology is more complicated than people think. And sometimes the hardest person to escape is the version of yourself that became convinced pain was home.